There are 11 games left in the Blue Jackets season. Can they win literally 3 of them? That's what we're going to talk about on today's Locked on Blue Jackets.
You're Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is part of the Locked on Podcast Network, and we are free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Blue Jackets lose again. Unsurprisingly, it is Vegas. After all, I don't think anyone thought that they were going to recreate the game that they had in Nationwide a couple of weeks ago. But it was better than the game against the Avalanche. Let's be honest. Would it be difficult to get worse? Yes. However, there were some bright spots in this game that I would like to point out. We're going to talk about Daniil Tarasov, who is excellent again, continues his great performance in March with I think he made 43 saves on 47 shots or something insane like that, because that's a normal amount of shots that you face in a hockey game, I guess. We're also going to check in on some prospect playoffs. I did a little dive into the European prospects. Turns out only one of them is in their respective playoffs. So we'll talk about Oiva Keskinen, and we're going to check in with the NCAA tournament, because that is happening, I think, starting on Thursday, and there are some Blue Jackets prospects that are there. The seeding has finally been figured out, so we'll talk about that as well. But let's talk about the game against Vegas. There were some things that the Blue Jackets did better in the game against the Avalanche, but there were also some things that they did worse. I want to give a shout out to Eric Branson, who I believe, if he scores one more goal, will tie his career high in goals. And if he scores twice in his last 11 games, he will set a new career high of 7 goals, which, again, extremely funny. Blue Jackets lose 4-2. It is 1-0 at the end of the first, and then the Golden Knights score with 3.5 minutes into the second period. And do you know when you just have a bad feeling? And I don't know whether it's the trauma of following this team and watching them give away leads all the time, but as soon as that first goal went in, I was like, right, they're going to score another one basically immediately, and probably another 2. Because the Knights had a kind of a sleepy first period. The Blue Jackets outshot them 10-8, outscored them 1-0. And then in the second period, the Vegas Golden Knights had 22 shots on goal, and the Blue Jackets had 3. And that's just not a recipe for success. Daniil Tarasov made 20 of 22 saves in the second period. The Knights almost had more goals than the Blue Jackets had shots. And that's not a knock on Tarasov. He was excellent in this game, and especially in that second period, like I said, when, 22 shots he faced in 20 minutes, over an average of a shot a minute, which is too many shots. And then kind of a similar thing in the third period. The Knights had 17. Blue Jackets managed to get 9 shots, but they got outshot 47-22, which they allowed fewer shots than they did against the Avalanche, but they also scored. They also had fewer shots as well. So, what are we doing here? Penalty kill killed one of the 2 power plays that Vegas had. They didn't get a power play again. I feel like this is the second game in a row, because I don't think they got a power play against the Avalanche either. So they haven't actually had a power play. Excuse me, they had one power play. My mistake. To start the second period, and then they did very little with it. Let's be honest. I don't know if they even had a shot on goal in that power play, because again, the power play just continues to. I don't get it. I don't understand. They had one shot on that power play. Aiden Hill saved it. Aiden Hill made 12 of 13 saves before leaving 4 minutes into the third period. I think he got dinged up, and they were like, well, let's rest him because they need him for the playoffs, let's be honest. Logan Thompson made 8 out of 9 saves in relief. You'd like to think that if the Blue Jackets are shooting on an ice-cold goalie, that they could, A, muster more than 9 shots in 16 minutes, and B, score more than 1 goal, again, on an ice-cold goalie, that it's not even like he's coming in the start of a period when he knows and he has chance to, stretch during intermission. He comes in 4 minutes into the third period, and the Blue Jackets, again, they can't muster more than half a dozen shots on him. Frustrating. Credit to Vegas. They did what they needed to do. I think they came into this game not wanting the same thing to happen last time, which is that they let Alex Nylander get a hat trick. And they got out-goalied last time. They did not. Did they get out-goalied in this game? Kind of, maybe. Like I said, Tarasov, excellent. Way busier than he should have been. Again, 43 saves on 47 shots is too many by any stretch of the imagination. And again, continues his extremely good month of March. I'm just pulling it up right now. In the month of March, he has 1 sub 900 save percentage. That's against Detroit when he allowed 4 goals on 26 shots. He's allowed to have 1 bad game. You have to go all the way back to February 13th for his next sub 900 save percentage. So, I have no issues with how Daniil Tarasov is playing right now. I think he's been, again, truly excellent for this team, which is, again, I said at the top of the show that there were some bright spots. That's definitely one of them. We're going to talk about a couple more of them in just a second here on Locked on Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you about GameTime because I buy a lot of hockey tickets, and GameTime is the only site that I use for it because they take all of the guesswork out of buying tickets. They are the fastest way to do it. They're the easiest way to do it. They've got sports, music, comedy, theater, last-minute deals, all in prices. And if you find tickets in your section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. It's perfect. There's no secret fees that get added when you hit the checkout like other ticketing services that we will not name here. They've got deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. So if you get out of work and you're like, hey, I want to go to a Blue Jackets game, why not? Open GameTime. They're going to have great deals for you there. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked on Blue Jackets. We are talking about the loss to Vegas because, of course, we are. Why not? But I talked about some of the bad in the first period, in the first segment. Excuse me. I talked about some of the good, and I want to talk about some more of the good, which is that Zach Werenski, I believe, is still on track to hit career high number of points. And I've talked about this, at several points in the season. But man, how much did they miss Zach Werenski last season and parts of this season as well? He's played in 59 of the 71 games that the Blue Jackets have played. So he's missed, if I could do math, he's missed 12 games. He's currently on pace for 52 points in 70 games. This will be his first 50-point season. And he's doing all of this by shooting at, he's shooting at 3% right now. He scored a goal against Detroit. That was one of his better games, I thought. He had 3 points and played a bajillion minutes. He's currently shooting at 2.9%. He's got 5 goals on 173 shots. So, if he was scoring even at his career average, which is 6.7, he probably has 4 more goals, 5 more goals. Insane. Again, just a really, really great offensive season from Werenski. He is currently 4 points away from tying his career high, which he set in 2021-22, had 48 points in 68 games. He's going to finish with, if he plays every game, I'm going to knock on wood because this team is cursed. He's going to finish on 70 games this season if he plays all of the games that are left. So I'm gonna go ahead and give a shout out to Zach Werenski, who again has been a bright spot on this team for many, many games. I still don't know that he should be playing a bajillion minutes a night, especially if he's not 100%, which I don't think he is right now. But if you, I don't know, why are we playing Jake Christensen if you're only going to play him for 11 and a half minutes? I don't get it. I truly don't understand what's going on in Vincent's mind here. One of the not so bright spots is not necessarily in the game, and it's something that I've seen a lot of people getting frustrated at on Twitter. And I am kind of in the same boat of being frustrated by it, but I kind of see where the team is coming from. So they weren't sure if Werenski could play against Colorado. They emergency called Jiricek up. He went to Colorado. He didn't play. They reassigned him the next day. So I don't even know if he made it. I don't know if he flew to Colorado, didn't play, flew to Vegas, and then immediately flew back to Cleveland, or if they just sent him from Colorado. But flew across the country to Colorado, didn't play, got sent down, flew back across the country to Cleveland, and didn't get there in time to play in Cleveland's game against Hershey that night, which they lost 4 or 5-1. I think it's a rough weekend for the Monsters. They lost both of their games, admittedly against Hershey, who are like stupid good. Like Hershey this season, think the Boston Bruins of last season, of just like truly insane levels of there's no reason why this team should be this good, and yet it is. They're like 12 points ahead of their nearest of like second place in the AHL right now. It's wild. Anyway, I'm starting to get frustrated, or more frustrated than I previously was, with the way that they're handling David Jiricek. Like, I was hoping that they would call him up and he would get some playing time. I was like, great, he's going to get some more NHL time. The season's done. Like, these games are, someone called them educational on Twitter, which I liked. And yet he's spent the weekend flying back and forward across the USA to not play hockey. I will say that his agent, Alan Walsh, is notoriously outspoken on Twitter, and I feel like if there was a real like breaking point issue happening between the player and the team or the organization, he probably would have something to say about it on Twitter. And like, that's his right. And, you know, he, for all his faults, he sticks up for his players. He sticks up for all NHL players, especially when you look at, you know, CTE and the way that the players get screwed over by the teams in terms of like escrow and the hard cap system, etc., etc. Like, I don't necessarily agree with all of his takes, but he stands up for the players and he stands up for his players. And the fact that he's not out here tweeting about how like badly Jiricek is being treated by the organization does make me feel like I think this is probably a little bit of all of us, myself included, being kind of overly melodramatic about Jiricek. It's not ideal. It's not what I wanted for this player to have this season, but at the same time, it's like you can kind of see where they're coming from. I do think if they were going to call someone up in case Werenski couldn't play, I do think they should have called someone else up. I think that Jiricek should be called up if they know he's going to play. And if he's not going to play, leave him where he is. Because like, what are we doing here? Like, call up Svozil or Knazko, or call up Nick Blankenberg, who I think is just getting back from injury. Like, if you need someone to be on the roster just in case, like, Nick Blankenberg feels like a perfect option there. So like, I just, frustrating is the buzzword for today's episode, I think. I wanted to briefly, before we get into some kind of prospect playoff chatter, I wanted to kind of briefly look at something I tweeted about yesterday on the podcast Twitter. At the start of the All-Star break, I looked at the Blue Jackets' remaining schedule in the last 32 games of the season, and I predicted that they would win 10 of their last 32 games. I actually thought 8 games were winnable, and then I thought they would win 2 just like wild games that they have no no business winning. Which I think they've won 1 of those games that they had no business winning. They beat the Rangers, which I wasn't expecting. Of the 21 games that they've played so far, they have 7 wins. They've got 11 games left in the season. So can they get 3 wins out of the following? They play the Hurricanes twice. They play the Coyotes, the Avalanche again, the Islanders, the Flyers, the Lightning, the Predators, the Panthers, and then they play the Penguins twice. Of those 9 teams, they have 11 games left, the only 2 that they've beaten are the Flyers and the Lightning. They've beaten them once each this season and lost 2 games against both of them. They still haven't beaten, this season, they haven't beaten the Hurricanes, the Avalanche, the Coyotes, the Islanders, the Predators, the Panthers, or the Penguins. They're 0-1 against the Coyotes. They're 0-2 against the Penguins. Those are the lowest 2 teams in the standings that the Blue Jackets still have to face. If the Blue Jackets win 3 games in their next 11, they will finish with 64 points on the season. Last season, they had 59 points on the season. So they were 5 points better than they were last season. And last season, they were injured all to hell. And like, it's kind of started a little bit this season with, losing Fantilli, losing Johnson, losing Laine, who's not injured but is in the player assistance program. Boquist is out, and, I think he and Werenski were really, really finding something together this season. Danforth is out, Corrali is out. Like, the injuries have not been as serious as last season, but they haven't been not there. So I guess that's my question to you. I just wanted to kind of touch on this. Like, I tweeted it out and had a couple of responses, but can the Blue Jackets win 3 of these 11 games? Just to go over those games again. Carolina twice, Arizona once, Colorado once, the Islanders once, Philadelphia once, Tampa Bay once, Nashville once, Florida Panthers once, and the Penguins twice. Can they win 3 of these games? I genuinely, they could. It's possible. I don't think it's likely. We'll see. They started against the Coyotes tomorrow. If they don't win that game, then my estimation of them winning 3 games goes down a significant amount. Because I think if they don't beat the Coyotes, then it's highly unlikely that they'll beat literally any other team on this list. We'll see. But let me know in the comments, at me on Twitter, email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com what you think. Can the Blue Jackets win 3 of their last 11 games? That's all I'm asking right now. Like, that is the bar is on the floor at this point in the season. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. We're going to finish off today's episode. We're going to touch on some college playoffs. We're going to take a look at Oiva Keskinen, who I believe is the only European Blue Jackets prospect that will be doing playoffs in his respective league, and that's coming up in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you guys about Sleeper, because the season's basically over. The Blue Jackets have underperformed by basically every metric possible, but regardless of that, you can win big by playing Daily Fantasy Hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. They're our number 1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because you can win 100 times your cash every single day. Entry can remain under a minute, and all you have to do is pick whether guys like McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby, McKinnon will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. To win 100 times your money on Sleeper, all you need to do is correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me right. Just get 8 questions right, put $5 in, and you can win $500. Play daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. Start paying attention, nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll go up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Let's talk playoffs. Not for the Blue Jackets, obviously, and we're going to get into some kind of monsters talk in a later episode this week, but 4 Blue Jackets will be taking part in, 3 Blue Jackets will be taking part in the NCAA hockey tournament. there are 16 teams there. The Blue Jackets have Aiden Preshuk playing for number 1 seed Boston College in the Providence Regionals in Rhode Island. They're going to be playing the number 4 seed Michigan Tech, and then William Whitelaw is also in that semifinal. So he'll be playing it for Wisconsin against Quinnipiac, who, correct me if I'm wrong, they won the Frozen Four last year. So only one Blue Jacket, well, possibly 0 Blue Jackets will come out of that, but it's impossible for all 3 Blue Jackets to make the Frozen Four. But Aiden Preshuk for Boston College, William Whitelaw for Wisconsin, and then Gavin Brindley for Michigan. Michigan lost the Big Ten championship game against Michigan State. They lost 5-4 in overtime, I believe, but they are still going to be in the top 16. They're playing the 2nd seed, North Dakota. If they win that game, they will play probably Michigan State again. Michigan State is playing Western Michigan. This is the Maryland Heights in Missouri regional. If they win, they will go on to the Frozen Four. It's going to be a fun playoffs. I'm going to try and watch a little bit more of it than I normally do, but there's a good to decent there's a decent to better chance that the Blue Jackets will have at least one player in the Frozen Four. They could have 2. They could have a player win it all. Be really interesting to see. I think Aiden Preshuk is going to be an interesting guy to watch. He's kind of a player that I think a lot of Blue Jackets fans forget is in the system. He was the player that they got in the Max Domi trade, I believe. Was a 3rd round pick by the Carolina Hurricanes. Obviously hasn't signed his DLC yet, but he's got 14 points in 37 games with Boston College this year. It's his 3rd season with Boston College. I'm gonna guess that he turned pro at the end of this season. He turns 22 in February, so he would be eligible to join the Monsters anyway. But I would imagine when his season is done, he signs his ELC and finishes the season with the Monsters, which is great because the Monsters need healthy defensemen, if nothing else. So that's the NCAA. And then I went and was like, oh man, we've got loads of European prospects. We don't. We have 4 total European prospects. 5 if you count Calvin Thurkauf, which I don't because he's 26 years old, but still, the Blue Jackets still own his rights. He's 2nd in the entire Swiss National League in scoring, which is great, but I think he probably is not. I'm not counting him as a prospect, so he doesn't. He's not going to be featured in this segment. Who is going to be featured in this segment is Oiva Keskinen, who the Blue Jackets drafted in the 7th round last season. Is a player that no one really knows much about, which is fascinating, but he's got 27 points in 54 games for Tappara in the Liga this season, and his team is the number 1 seed in their half of the playoffs. They're playing the 9th seed TPS. They're currently up 2-1. Keskinen has 1 point in 3 games so far. They next play on Tuesday, the 26th, game 4 of that season, of that series, and Tappara can take a 3-1 series lead over TPS. I'm expecting Tappara to advance here. They were great in the regular season, finished number 1 in the standings with 123 points, 34 wins, 13 ties, 13 losses, and 8 overtime losses. And they're playing I believe the lowest, it's literally the lowest seed in of the 8 playoff teams. So we'll see. They will play, I believe, the winner of the Pelicans and HIFK. If my playoff bracket reading skills work, which only maybe, they'll play one of the Pelicans or HIFK. But we'll be keeping an eye on Keskinen. He's a guy that I think probably is not going to be a Blue Jacket for a minute, but he's definitely a guy to watch. And then I wanted to touch on a couple of the Russian prospects, and then I realized that neither of them are in the playoffs. Kirill Dolzhenkov, his team, CSKA Moscow, was kicked out of the playoffs. They lost 4-1. If I'm reading this KHL playoff bracket correctly, which now I'm questioning myself. So I'm just gonna Just going to double check that I am right, because I suddenly, like I said, am questioning. Yeah, they lost to Yaroslav Lokomotiv 4-1, which is going to be disappointing, I'm sure, for CSKA Moscow, and that's Kirill Dovzhenkov's season over. I got really excited because I forgot that they had SKA St. Petersburg had traded Sergei Ivanov. He's with the Admiral in the KHL, who did not make the playoffs. So despite being one of the best goalies in the league on one of the worst teams at the age of 19 and 5'11", he will not be making a playoff appearance, which is disappointing. So Oiva Keskinen, the only European prospect still standing for the Blue Jackets, if you don't count Calvin Thurkow, which I don't. But there's some interesting playoff performances going on, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, because again, like, the Blue Jackets have nothing going for them, so we might as well look to the future. The playoff seeding has come out for the CHL leagues, so we'll take a look at that in tomorrow's episode and see who's going to be playing who has the highest seed, who we're looking at to have big playoff pushes this season. But that's all I've got for today. Tomorrow, like I said, we are going to take a look at some more playoff stuff for prospects. We'll take a look at the CHL, who's playing who we're expecting to have big playoff seasons, and we'll take a look at the Coyotes, who are in town, or the Blue Jackets are in their town this season, this game. They're playing in March Arena tomorrow night. That's a Tuesday. For those of you who don't know how to read a calendar, which honestly, it's me. I don't know how to read a calendar. I don't know why I'm accusing all of you of not being able to read a calendar. But we'll talk about that game. We'll do a preview. I'm losing control of this outro very, very fast. So we'll go ahead and call it there. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jacket. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day every single day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms, over on YouTube and on SiriusXM. Until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.